Okay, sorry about that, guys. I started just a couple of minutes late. Bear with me while I close these doors. Okay. Get back in position. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, I was sitting here curating the Twitter the threads that we're going to look at this morning. So yesterday I was talking about the continuing resolution, and I know, like 10, 15 minutes in, I went way off track and started down some completely unrelated avenues. I think we'll be able to stay on track a little more this morning. There are some derailing trains of thought that I'm probably going to want to explore as we discuss what happened yesterday. But yeah, let's get into it. What happened yesterday? Well, as I reported yesterday morning, as of the show time yesterday morning, it very much looked like the continuing resolution was essentially a foregone conclusion. It was going to happen. And then America happened. We happened all over that son of a bitch. And essentially, Elon Musk made some statements, and the people of the United States responded by amplifying that message. And the message was Vox Populi, Vox Dei. We are not interested in your nonsense. And I've got these out of order. It's okay. Basically, Elon popped in and said, "Hey, look, this continuing resolution is bullshit. America's not going to stand for it. And if you keep doing this garbage, if you keep trying to cram this trash down our throats, we will primary everybody." Okay, so when I go on X or I do the show here and I say, y'all, if the goons, if the rhinos in the GOP are not with Donald Trump 100% to swift vote through his entire agenda, to close the border, to deport the criminals, to shut down our foreign entanglements, to try and balance the budget and fix this shit, fix this nightmare that the Democrats have foisted upon us. If you rhinos in the GOP are not on board 100%, I will do everything I can to tell people, hey, these guys got to go. It's time to primary these sons of bitches. We need to put our hands up and get out here and run against these corrupt sacks of shit. When I say it, it has an effect, but it's a minuscule effect. I understand that. It gets you guys talking, right? And more often than not, what I'm trying to accomplish here, we're preaching to the choir. And I understand that. Now, that's the thing. There's a reason that you preach to the choir, right? Preaching to the converted is not a wasted talent. It's not a wasted activity. I am well informed. I study up on this stuff, and I discuss the arguments. I watch other people make arguments. I study the arguments of the opposition, and I talk to you guys about it. I don't expect to change any of your minds on anything. I want you to walk away from this show, have your cup of coffee, great big cup of get shit done, and walk away from this show armed with the sort of information that allows you to make compelling and engaging arguments and be prepared to push back when somebody starts running their mouths, when they clearly don't know what they're talking about, right? It is very possible for the average American who's busy. You got work, you got kids, you got shit you got to do. And trying to stay informed and stay up on everything is difficult to do. We get that. We all get that. So you can be principled and know what your principles are, and even have good reasoning behind your principles, and have that great filter to observe reality through. And often what you'll get with that is you'll see something, it's like prawn and unicorns and push-ups, right? You know it when you see it. When something's wrong, you know it when you see it. But just because you know it's bad doesn't mean you know all the ways that it's bad. Doesn't mean that you know how to explain what's bad. And so that's what I want to try and give to you guys every morning, is I want you to be able to speak intelligently on topics and hopefully change some hearts and minds, right? We can't always just put two in the heart and one in the mind. Sometimes we have to use our words. And as much as I'm happy to make the argument that the Second Amendment is more important than the First Amendment, there's a reason that we try to go to the soapbox and the ballot box before we go to the cartridge box, right? There's a reason we try to start with words. And words, y'all, what just happened yesterday, this is a powerful shift in the entire dynamic of our country. What you saw yesterday was not some billionaire issue orders to the government and they comply. That's what the Democrats are trying to say you saw yesterday. No, that is not what happened yesterday. What happened yesterday is a government for the people, of the people, and by the people was commanded in real time by the people. X is a big deal. It is a big deal. When this country was founded, the theory was a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. But communication technology essentially was non-existent. A government in the mid-1700s crafted of the people, for the people, by the people, as in the government itself, the body of the government, is not an entity that is separate from the people who were governed, right? Like a German king of England, right? A Spanish king of France, things of that nature, and a family line that completely excludes the blood and the sovereignty of the people it governs. No. Of the people. These are the people. And of them, they will select people to come and represent them and represent their interests. By the people who are selected from the people to be trusted with the extraordinary responsibility of making decisions on our behalf will be chosen by the people from whom they're selected. That's why our representatives, our senators, our congressmen, and even our president vote in our elections. Now, of course, 99 times out of 100, they vote for themselves, but they vote because at the core, the rule is that they are of the people, for the people, by the people, and for the people. And that's the for the people. So in its earliest inception, it was a bit of a pipe dream because of the limitations of technology. So we send our reps, our senators, everybody goes off to Washington, D.C., right? And I know it wasn't D.C. back then, but they go to D.C. and that's where they are, right? Until the telephone was invented, if you, the people, wanted to communicate your expectations and demands, petition the government for redress of grievances, you had to either send a letter or physically go there, or send a representative. You've already sent a representative. You send an agent, right? But there was a time delay. There was a gap. Not anymore, baby. Not anymore. Now with Twitter, with X, the people, all of the people, are empowered to speak immediately convey meaning and convey our demands and petition the government for redress of grievances. I want to take a quick aside. There's a clip I meant to have pulled up. Let me see if I can find it real quick. There's this clip going around on Twitter where this guy's saying it's this dopey looking white boy saying that he wants 11 million people to be there on January 6th to give Trump a heart attack, to give him a coronary and make him shut it down. I bet I can find it real quick. Yep, there. I want to share this with you guys real quick. This guy.
4-5. Guys, don't forget. It's we the people, okay? We have executive order coming out 13848, right? It's going to be implemented. It's been out. Donald Trump helped create it. And it's going to come back to bite him in the ass because what it does is it says how we have to proceed when we realize that there has been outside interference in our elections. There definitely has been. They're going to reveal that on the 20th of December because 45 days from November 6th brings us to December 20th, which is 6 days from today. So this coming Friday. So have a great weekend. Do your laundry. Hang your stuff out. You're doing this executive order 13848. Just show up in Washington and have this guy step down. The 3% rule states that if you have 3% of a group of people's population, 3% of a particular population, if they gather en masse, they can change everything. So we have 330 million Americans. 10% of that is 33 million. And what's a third of that? 11 million. 11 million of us have to show up on Washington, D.C. on January 20th and have this guy step down.
11 million people. He says that if we can get 11 million people to show up in Washington, D.C., then we can make the government do what we want them to do. I got one for you, sweetheart. I got one for you. Y'all see what that says right there? 81 million views. 81 million. Or I'm sorry, 18 million. Nearly double what he's talking about. 18 million. How's that for you, son? Bring your 11 million people. Bring your 11 million people. Because the half of Americans that are gun owners, we own more guns than the rest of the world combined, including the governments. So, okay, start talking, start running your mouth about your ridiculous nonsense. 18 million. So what just happened is we've just seen a major Gutenberg revolution. It has changed because of the speed of technology. The American people are able to immediately and aggressively petition the government for redress of grievances and get a response. Because we did not just say we don't like what you're doing. We made a threat. And, it's not legal to make threats. No, it is. It's absolutely legal to make threats. Specific types of threats. It is not legal to call for the murder, the assassination, the killing of, the incoming president or the CEOs of health companies, right? That calling for death and physical bodily harm and the like, making a threat of that nature, that's a crime. But you're an elected official, and the threat we make is we will not vote for you. In fact, if you do the wrong thing here, we're going to actively work to vote against you. We're going to find somebody else to run against you, and we're going to fire your ass. We're going to throw you out on the fucking curb and be done with you because we're tired of your nonsense, right? So Benny Johnson shared this tweet. I'm gonna show you this one first, and then we're gonna go to the one from Nancy Mace. And I'm doing it this way because Benny has given us a nice, concise, neat summary of a lot of the trash that is in there, and I want y'all to be clear on some things. You look at all this trash that's in there, and you're hearing the Democrats now talking about, oh, well, these Republicans, they're holding up the continuing resolution and it was going to fund disaster relief. Y'all, it's going to fund disaster relief? Okay, I know there's still some people hurting out there, and I know those people should be getting some help from the government that they're not getting. But if you hear a Democrat or a Republican, if you hear anybody talking about how it's such a bad thing that the continuing resolution is being blocked, because, well, what about the disaster relief? They're trash. As soon as you hear that phrase, what about the disaster relief? The correct question is, yeah, what about the disaster relief? Where was the disaster relief? Back when there was a disaster, when it happened, when we needed that money, when we needed government resources, when you should have been deploying the Army Corps of Engineers to go and put up temporary housing and build, put up the big clamshells with the, like you're deploying an Army battalion, throw up the clamshells with the bunk beds and let people hang sheets between them for privacy if need be. Get them the fuck out of the weather, out of the rain. Get them safe. Where were you on that? That didn't happen, which tells me that the disaster relief does not and never did matter to you at all. At all. Instead, what you're interested in, what you want, you piece of shit politician, you want, because these are the things that the continuing resolution does. And understand this, okay, I get a little excited sometimes. Let me make sure that everybody's on the same page. I want you to understand what the continuing resolution is. This is important. So, a continuing resolution is passed by the government in order to continue funding those programs which are non-discretionary expenditures of the government, which have already been legislated into law through the process, bill to a law. Those things which are non-discretionary spending. DOD, as much as it pains me to admit it, the welfare state is legally on that list. Things of that nature, right? The things that the government has to pay for, that the government doesn't get to choose whether or not they pay for. The continuing resolution authorizes the funds to be spent on those key areas. So that we're clear, this other fear mongering about, oh, you're what kind of patriot's not going to pay the soldiers at Christmas time? Not how this works. Not how this works. In 2011, I was in Afghanistan when one of these continuing resolutions went sideways under Barack Obama, and I didn't get paid. I mean, I eventually got back paid. But one payday while I was in combat, I got a message from my wife, hey, babe, the rent's due, and we didn't get paid. And I took a week off. I sat down and watched cartoons. And when the commander came to ask me why I wasn't doing mission, why I wasn't going and hunting terrorists, I said, because you're not paying me. This is my job. I don't do it for free. Unfuck your shitbird president, get me a paycheck, and I'll start killing terrorists again. Don't get me wrong. I love to do it. But how many professional football players do you know that are going to go out there and throw passes without getting a paycheck? I'm not here for nothing, my man. That was an anomaly. That was something where Obama himself had to make a specific order to stop the payments because that is one of those non-discretionary funds. And then in 2019, there was a bill passed to explicitly prevent a president from being able to do that. That's something Trump got done for us, right? That's important. That's important to remember. So the ones that are talking about disaster relief, they're full of shit, because if they cared, we'd have seen the Army National Guard. We sent the Army National Guard and the Army Corps of Engineers out working where they were supposed to be instead of sitting on their fucking thumbs back at the base. And if you hear somebody talking about, oh, well, your soldiers aren't going to get paid and Social Security's not going to get paid and the welfare brood mayors aren't going to get paid, they're lying. They're just outright lying. And when I say they're lying, I've seen more than one Democrat politician make this claim who was in office in 2019 when the bill was passed to shut that shit down, right? Where's the, I've got it as a, the Government Employee Fair Treatment Act of 2019. The Government Employee Fair Treatment Act of 2019 requires that federal employees, whether furloughed or required to work during a government shutdown, are to be fully compensated for the period of the lapse as soon as possible after the shutdown ends. They get paid, right? And most of them are covered by multi-year appropriations bills. So there's that. Now, so a continuing resolution is only supposed to extend the authorization of funds that have already been authorized in other places. So back to Benny Johnson's summary. What this bill includes, and I've got another reference that actually references the page numbers and sections of the bill. So this isn't just something that somebody's pulling out of their ass. Gain of function research. New mask and vaccine mandates. There's a provision in the continuing resolution preemptively to create the authority to implement mask and vaccine mandates at the federal level. Building 12 new biolabs. Massive pay increases for Congress. Now, yeah, that right there, that's why they're really upset. Because they're trying to vote for a pay increase for them. Funding to build a DC sports stadium. I'm sorry. The government is at risk of being shut down if this continuing resolution doesn't pass. And you're trying to spend, a couple of $2 billion on building a new Superdome in Washington, D.C.? Piss right up your nose with that shit. $60 billion more dollars to Ukraine. Another $60 billion to Ukraine. Right? It's the so-called bipartisan border reform bill all over again. Oh, yeah, this is going to totally solve all the problems at the border. And it's going to do that by letting in an exact number of illegal aliens every day, and we're going to send $60 billion to Ukraine. What the fuck does Ukraine have to do with our border security? Right? Congress blocking subpoenas for their data. There's a provision, there are a couple of provisions in the continuing resolution that prevent the Congress from being able to use subpoenas against people like Liz Cheney, who looks like she's going to be facing criminal charges for witness tampering related to the January 6th committee. And this continuing resolution included provisions to protect the evidence, to basically keep us from being able to read her official emails. Which, by the way, her official emails, unless they are legitimately classified, are a matter of public record. That is the communication between elected officials. Expansion of the government censorship state. We're gonna end up talking about that more in later shows, because that, the molasses inspection funding. There's a provision in here to fund the stand-up of a new organization to inspect molasses inspection. Okay, I want to spend just a second on this. I haven't heard anything about there being a problem with molasses being contaminated, infected, et cetera, et cetera. They're looking to spend money on an organization to inspect molasses inspection. I want you to listen carefully to what I just said there, though. To inspect molasses inspection. Not to inspect molasses. No, it's theoretically an investigative body whose job it is to examine the inspection process of molasses. Okay. I'm a fat boy. I like cookies. I'm interested in safe molasses. Cool. Why does that belong in the continuing resolution? Oh, because it's fucking pork that you think you could cram in and nobody's going to notice it because you snuck it into 1,500 pages of trash. And then there's a whole section on woke term changes. And remember, woke term changes. Changing the word offender to justice-involved individual. And I want you to understand what that means. I did a whole show on changing the name of bases, like they changed Fort Gordon to Fort Eisenhower. That's not just a matter of changing the one big sign, right? That's reprinting millions of reams of letterhead so that it says Fort Eisenhower instead of Fort Gordon. That's redesigning websites with new logos. That's going through all of the information systems and updating the nomenclature so that you don't accidentally break one of the databases and have soldiers just disappear from accountability records. It's billions of dollars of money being spent on that, right? Changing the terms offender to justice-involved individual, besides being intellectually counterproductive and just an absolutely disgusting abuse of the language. You're talking about having to change documents, having to reprint documents all over the country, all through the Justice Department. It's a nightmare. And Stryker points out also, changing words equals changing the law. It does. It absolutely does. You gotta forgive me rocking back and forth. My knee it's just cool enough outside that my knee is killing me. Sorry about that. Okay, elimination of the word homeless, transparency and concert ticket pricing. That's been one of Biden's big bugaboos, the whole junk fees thing. And it's one of those things like, I might even agree that junk fees have been abused enough that maybe there's a place for the government to come in and say, okay, look, price fixing is morally wrong. It's financially, it's economically retarded, and it's not something that the government should be doing in any way whatsoever. Okay, gotcha. So price fixing, bad. I'm in. Got it. So yeah, it's stupid to be talking about price fixing generally. But there may be a point at which it's also reasonable to say, okay, there's a line between what is free commerce and what is fraud or what is extortion. Okay, cool. We can totally have that conversation. A, It doesn't belong here by any stretch of the imagination. And B, the idea that Joe Biden and the Democrat Party and their political estimators is the idea that talking about this junk fees nonsense is something that's important enough to be a part of your campaign just illustrates how grotesquely out of touch they are. It's insane, right? So that's just nonsense. Elimination of the word homeless. I think they're trying to change the word homeless to the phrase person impacted by homelessness. And hey, TPS report, I do see you over there on Twitter. I did manage to get rid of the thing where you have to be a verified account to reply. I'm glad to have you. I'm glad to have you watching this morning, brother. And I appreciate the shout out from you the other day. Thanks again. This one, there's some stuff. There's actually some stuff here. Let's see. A feral swine eradication program. Okay. Let me talk about that for just a second. I don't want to go in too deep, but I'll talk about it a little bit. There are a few bases that I've been to that actually have a problem with feral swine, with boar and warthogs, feral hogs on base. Now, this is largely because a military base is a gigantic piece of property, right? I mean, back when I was the training and operations NCOIC for the Delta unit of the 317th on Oahu, when I wanted to make sure that my soldiers were going to be ready to go to war and survive and come back, we would take a 10-mile ruck march. We'd march 5 miles out in almost a straight line, go into the gas chamber, throw in some tear gas, do push-ups, sing the Army song, take a few good deep breaths, step outside, vomit, snot, and then march 5 miles back. Because a military base is big enough for you to march 5 miles, 10 miles, 15 miles across. So a lot of that space, a lot of that territory is woods on many of these bases, right? Most especially Schofield Barracks and Fort Benning. And one of the cool things, if you're in the know and you can get access to the base, Fort Benning often will put out a bounty. They did in Hawaii too. They'll put out a bounty on the hogs. So basically, you get a license specifically to hunt hogs on the base. They let you in, and there's a designated area where you can go and hunt the feral hog population because they get out of control, right? When you've got feral hogs wandering into the daycare playground, you have a problem. Okay, so yeah, and I love me some feral hog bacon. Are you kidding me? Oh my God. When I was in Hawaii, okay, Samoans are big dudes. Like they're my size big plus 100 pounds, big dudes. And they hunt boar with knives. It's amazing. And there was this woman that worked at the subway on base. And her boys would go and hunt 3 or 4 feral hogs every week. And they would bring them home and pit roast them in the ground. And the subway on base sold Kahlua pork sandwiches that were sourced from the hogs that those boys were hunting on the weekends. Amazing. So, hey, you know what? I'd be all for a federal program. Doesn't even have to be a federal program. You'd be talking about an executive order from the commander in chief. Hey, this is something that I want happening on my bases. The feral swine population is a problem. Take care of. What the fuck is it doing in a continuing resolution? What does feral swine control have to do at all with whether or not the government continues to be funded for the next 84 days? Nothing. It has nothing to do with that. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to go to Nancy Mace's post where, no, that's not it. Here it is. So Nancy Mace posted a thread, and we're going to go through this and talk about, because it goes into much more detail on some of the individual abuses. And in fact, let me start with the top of this before I. Oh, son of a bitch! I clicked the wrong button, and now I lost my spot. There it is. Okay, got it. So she begins at the top here with, as promised, here's our breakdown of the massive CR. It funds censorship, includes enormous subsidies for industries who don't need them, and includes a bunch of woke nonsense. A thread. This is what I want you to see first. This CR is 1,547 pages long and covers a period of 84 days. For context, the last CR on September 26th was 21 pages and lasted 85 days. Like I said, the first 14 pages of this CR are the table of contents. The next 9 pages are the actual CR. 9 pages for the actual CR. That's it, just 9 pages. After that, the remaining 1,524 pages are unrelated to keeping the government open. So I want to be very, very clear about this. What she's just pointed out, and I wish she had had the wherewithal to say this, but what she's pointing out here is that the CR is a fraud. This isn't just bad governance. The people, everyone involved in crafting this document and calling it a CR, a continuing resolution, has just attempted to perpetrate a fraud on the American people. Every signatory to this continuing resolution is engaged in a conspiracy to defraud the American people. Full stop. I defy you to tell me why we should not be impeaching and prosecuting every single signatory to the current continuing resolution, every person involved in crafting this document, and every politician who does vote yes on it. We should be prosecuting them to the fullest extent of the law with the maximum possible sentencing and consequences for the conspiracy to defraud the American people. I cannot state it any more clearly and simply than that. And I defy you, America, to rebut that claim. Prosecute everyone. One of the things, I'm gonna keep beating this drum. I'm gonna keep beating this drum forever. In fact, I might just need to bring a drum in here to beat on occasion for dramatic effect. In fact, I've got one right now. I'll do that. Bring in drum for beating. There we go. Okay. We have to start using the prosecutorial powers of the government against the government. Our government has been defrauding us, abusing us, and extorting us for as long as any of you can remember. And don't get it twisted. I know my demographics. I know that when I say that we haven't had a fair election, most of you have not had the opportunity to vote in a Democrat primary because they haven't held one in at least 30 years. The Democrats have not held a legitimate primary in at least 30 years. I know when I say that Donald Trump is the greatest president in living memory, I'm talking to an audience of largely key demo. I know the bulk of you are between 30 and 50, but I know a large number of you are septuagenarians. And when I know that if you're a septuagenarian and I'd utter the phrase, Donald Trump is the greatest president in living memory, that there are a lot of presidents to put him up against, including two of my favorites, Reagan and Nixon. And if y'all don't get that jab about Nixon, y'all need to study up on the man who threw himself on his sword to get us out of Vietnam. But there's a lot to be had there. It's been 27 years since our Congress passed a budget on time. Okay. In business terms, or in tabletop politics terms, the failure of the Congress to pass a budget should amount to me as the CEO of a company taking clients to a business dinner to discuss a new venture, a new project, etc., and having my card declined in front of prospective business partners and losing that business as a result. And let me ask you something. If you're the CEO of ABC brand and you lose $1 million fucking sales deal because you were embarrassed at the steakhouse when your company credit card was declined, are you even going to get out of the restaurant before you pick up your cell phone and fire your accountant? Fuck no. No, that's a man's job gone, and it should be. Absolutely should be. You can't have that nonsense. Legion says we haven't had a budget since Newt Gingrich. Unverified Bear. Matt, Bear, I gotta say, brother, I appreciate the hell out of you watching as often as you do. If you ever manage to make it into the lower 48, brother, I will buy you a steak and a beer. Guaranteed. That offer actually extends to the vast majority of you guys. If you just happen to find yourself in my neck of the woods and hit me up, I mean, for the next couple of weeks, we're busy as a squirrel trying to shed a pineapple. So, but hit me up when we got the time. I'd love to get a cold beer and a steak with just about any of you. So I want to get back into Nancy Mace a little bit more on this. Okay, so she points out that whole thing, the first 14 pages of the CR, the table of contents, 9 pages for the actual CR. So the last 1,524 pages are literally these cronies, these shitburgers, trying to sneak in stuff to stick extra goodies in there for themselves, to include giving themselves a massive raise. The difference between a CR and an omnibus, a CR is supposed to be continuing spending at previously appropriated levels, which were already too high. An omnibus is a combination of the appropriation bills to appropriate funding at new levels for the duration of the fiscal year, right? So, and this has been, they keep saying continuing resolution, not omnibus, right? The CR references the Balanced Budget and Emergency Deficit Control Act of 1985. This CR is not balancing the budget. It's waiving requirements in the act as a way for Congress to avoid sequestration due to our historic deficit. And part of that is that the government is basically making the claim, and understand how psychotic this is. The government is making the claim that they're not restricted by the statutory pay-go that requires them to have spending increases in certain programs reflect spending decreases to offset those increases from other programs. in order to maintain a level of spending. The government is attempting to make the claim that they have not increased direct spending at all. No, hold on a minute. I seem to recall going through an election cycle somewhat recently. Checks watch. Oh yeah, that just happened. An election cycle in which one of the key conversations was about how much the deficit has increased. And a lot of the argument, there was no argument over whether or not the deficit increased. There was no argument over whether or not the debt increased. All the argument was over whose fault it was. Whether it was Biden or Trump. Was it Biden's fault? Was it Trump's fault? By the way, the answer to that question is it was Obama's fault. Obama, we like to say tripled, but he came just short of quadrupling the national debt accrued by every preceding president. During his 8 years in office, Barack Obama spent more money than the U.S. spent in the preceding 200 years. Let that sink in. But after an election cycle where we heard all these arguments about who increased the debt, who increased the deficit, part of the argument made by the very existence of this continuing resolution is that there was no increase in direct spending in the U.S. government during the preceding period. And so it's legal statutorily for the PAYGO to allow for the continuing resolution to be passed rather than the budget that they're supposed to pass and have it passed in 27 fucking years. And by the numbers, guys, like we don't yet know exactly who. I mean, obviously Nancy Mace is a no vote, and good for her. I'd vote for her if I could at this point. By the numbers, we don't know all of who is voting yes and who is voting no just yet. We do know that there are enough GOP members that have said, nope, people are getting pissed. We're not playing that game. So the bill is dead. As far as we can tell, it hasn't actually been voted down yet, but through this kind of whipping activity, the bill is essentially dead, and that's a great thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap on this. I've been at it for almost an hour. I'd like to go into some more detail here, but I promised my little boy I'd take him out for a haircut and a cheeseburger today, and well, we live in the middle of nowhere, so it's like a 5-hour drive to anything worth so got to get moving shortly. Anyway, the quick takeaway, the easy win. I'm not going to take the bait, Cameron. The easy win is the CR has been stopped, at least for now. It appears that the CR has been stopped, at least for now. The real big win, though, is what I was talking about at the top of the show. This change in the rate of communication has had a massively positive impact on the ability of we the people to directly influence our government the way that we were intended to. Letter writing campaigns, protests, showing up in person, all that kind of stuff. It can work. It can be effective. It can be very powerful. But there's a reason we call it snail mail, because it moves like old people fuck. It's slow and unreliable. But this X stuff, This is more like writing messages on arrows and putting them through windows. It's now. And it's not, it goes beyond just the speed at which we can communicate to our government. That's a huge deal. But it also allows essentially crowdsourcing instantaneous petitions, right? You can go on Twitter, on X, I'm sorry, I keep dead naming it. You can go on X and you can say, hey, the continuing resolution is bullshit. And 18 million people click a couple of buttons and agree. They hit that little heart button, they hit the like button, they hit the repost button, they hit the quote button. They get under it and they make a comment. Yeah, it's bullshit, and here's why. Or yeah, it's bullshit, and I'm tired of it. I can't take it anymore. And they make the comments, and it blows up. And then you get at the top of Twitter this morning. It looks like this. You get the Cope and Seed. Rep Becca Balliant. If Republicans don't stand up to Elon now, it's only going to get worse from here on. Hell yeah, it is. And that's the point. That's what we're looking for. We're really going to govern like this for the next 4 years? Govern like what, you stupid bitch? Govern like, I don't know, we have a constitutional government of, for, and by the people? Then hell yeah, I hope we are going to govern like this for the next 4 years and beyond. Absolutely. Right? Mike Levin, Elon Musk, and Donald Trump, the billionaires in chief, are showing their true colors. They care more about throwing tantrums than helping farmers and hurricane victims. Shut up, liar. You're a fucking liar. You are a liar. It's that simple. Like I pointed out earlier, right? The Federal Employees Protection Act, whatever, right? The soldiers are going to get paid. The farm subsidies are going to get paid. Those things get paid. It's non-discretionary funding that we're arguing about here. You're a liar. Jim McGovern, Johnson negotiated with Democrats to keep the government open, then went back on his word, abandoning help for farmers and disaster victims because apparently out-of-touch billionaire Elon Musk now calls the shot. You're a liar. Okay, and let me go back to that real quick before I button this up. Yeah, Johnson was all in on this thing. I want y'all to remember that because he's up in 2026. He's got to go. That piece of shit was all on board for the 1,500 pages of just shit. So, we need to send him packing immediately. Hey, Matt Gaetz, do it again. Do it again. Fuck this guy. He doesn't need to be the speaker. He's useless. All right. I'm going to go ahead and put a pin in it there. Like I said, I got to get down the road. Thanks guys for watching this morning. I really appreciate that. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow. Oh, I missed my button. That's supposed to be a smoother sign off. I'm supposed to be able to go. Thanks for watching, guys. We love you, and I'll see you tomorrow.